Back in the summer of 2004, Brian Michael Bendis, who is in the middle of a highly acclaimed and maybe one of the best ever Daredevil runs of all time, is asked to come over and revitalize a tired Avengers team. So what does he do? He kills a bunch of them and breaks up the team. But then he starts the New Avengers. This is an amazing era for the Avengers, one of my absolute favorites, and I can't wait to show you this book. Grab your cup of coffee and let's check it out. All right, here we have The New Avengers by Brian Michael Bendis, and what an absolute awesome team of artists he gets to work with. David Finch, who I think is one of the best to ever do it. Steve McNiven, who I absolutely love. Frank Cho, Mike Deodato, Lionel Francis Yu, Olivier Coipel, Alex Malik, like on and on and on. What a fantastic team. And you get some Silvestri in here. That's always a win. But let's take a look at this book, Volume 1. Here we get all the issues. And because we are not absolute animals, we're going to take the dust jacket off before we read it. All right, here it is. This is first printing, so it kind of has that faux leather look with the New Avengers logo on there. And there's the spine. But let's get into this story. So where does this start off? We start off with Avengers 500 through 503, and then what is called the Avengers finale. And this is a story called Avengers Disassembled. And this was Brian Michael Bendis' way of shaking up this kind of tired old team, right? They had so many members. It was kind of convoluted. I wasn't a big fan of Avengers kind of leading up to this. So amazing cover by our boy David Finch. Let's get into it. So what is Avengers Disassembled? You've got some Avengers hanging out at the mansion, and there's an explosion, and you know, what the heck is going on? Tony Stark at the time is the Secretary of Defense, but something happens to him where he kind of acts drunk out in public, and he hasn't drank in years, and no one really knows what's going on. But the big explosion at the Avengers mansion, another explosion, they're just under attack, Ultron shows up, and this is kind of out of nowhere. She-Hulk has this amazing moment where she absolutely freaks out, and let's see here. Let's see if we can see this. Yeah, she just rips someone completely in half in a crazed Hulk rage. But what the hell's going on? As it turns out, Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, is slowly losing control of her hex powers, her chaos magic powers, her mutant abilities to control reality, and she is causing all of this mayhem. Maybe unknowingly, or maybe just in a fit of poor mental health, but she ends up killing some members of the Avengers, some longtime members of the Avengers, and this is devastating for the survivors, Iron Man, Captain America. I guess I should mention, prior to this, there was a tie-in story to Avengers Disassembled called Thor Disassembled. Ragnarok, and the result of that is Thor is gone from the picture. He's not published for about 3 years, which is pretty amazing length of time for someone to stay gone. But yeah, everyone's kind of called in. Doctor Strange is called in. Can he help out? And we're left with Magneto coming to take his daughter away. So the next issue picks up pretty much immediately, like it's the following month. Actually, first we get the Avengers finale. This is a really cool long issue. It had a lot of returning artists, but just kind of the Avengers all getting back together and sharing their favorite moments from the past. This is a really cool Korvac saga, the first battle with Thanos back in the 70s. Don't remember. Zemo. I don't know what they're remembering. A battle with Ultron, of course. But it ends really cool. They kind of come out of this destroyed mansion, and a bunch of New Yorkers are there to kind of grieve with them and show their support. Really cool. But like I said, the next issue is called New Avengers, and it picks up 1 month later. But I don't know if you can see down here, it actually says there's about a 6-month time gap. And in that time gap, some significant things happen. Wolverine gets killed and resurrected and sent on a murder mission. Captain America goes through the events of Winter Soldier. Iron Man goes through the events of Iron Man Extremis. And then Nick Fury's Secret War, which ends up with Nick Fury kind of being gone from the picture. So you'll notice Nick Fury is not around for this. And I'll put a link up here somewhere, but I recently reviewed the Secret War story. But yeah, so we start off with a story called Breakout, and a new Avengers team is going to form after they respond to a jailbreak at the Raft, the floating island prison. And what a cool scene here. Spider-Man coming out of the water and Captain America reaching out his arm to help him up. And you can see Spider-Man's villain Electro is the one who is in charge of the jailbreak. But he's not the man behind the scenes, making the decisions, I guess I'll say. Really cool. We get to see Sentry. Sentry actually placed himself in prison because he thought he killed his wife. Sentry kind of follows up on that Paul Jenkins run from a few years prior to this. But yeah, massive breakout at this thing. This Avengers team, Daredevil's there, Luke Cage is there, Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man are all there trying to not as a team yet, just trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And the next day, Iron Man and Captain America have the great idea that we got to put the team back together. Tony Stark is no longer the Secretary of Defense. He cannot fund the Avengers after the events of Avengers Disassembled, but he decides he's going to put a team together and put them in his tower. So they go on a mission, and they want to put the team together. So they go for Luke Cage. They go for Daredevil. They go for Spider-Woman, who's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the time. They get Jarvis on the team. Just kidding, but he's there. And you just kind of, this first thing is just the team getting together and investigating what the hell happened at the raft and who's behind it. And on their first adventure, it takes them to the Savage Land where they meet Wolverine. And like I said, Wolverine had just got done with this story called Enemy of the State. And I'll put a link up there because I reviewed that recently. But he, kind of was put through the ringer and might not have the trust of all the heroes. But he's also in the Savage Land separately investigating what the hell is going on. And it turns out, obviously the Avengers are going to win. No duh, Kev. But they invite Wolverine to be part of the team. And there's a cool moment where he says, I don't think you want me after what I've been through. And I just love when writers acknowledge other things within this shared universe. It just makes the stories so much cooler. So there's something going on in the Savage Land, and kind of adding into this mystery of what's going on. Does this have anything to do with Nick Fury being gone? But there's, like I said, there's this thing kind of hanging over the Avengers. They don't know exactly who's in charge, what happened with this prison break, what brought them to the Savage Land. And, like I said, Fury's gone, so they got to deal with Maria Hill, who is not the Maria Hill from the movies. She's a little more of a B, or just difficult to deal with, I'll say. So the next story is called The Sentry, and we switch artists, and we get Steve McNiven, and we get this is kind of the groundwork for the Illuminati, which was created by Brian Michael Bendis, and it's the smartest, most powerful, or these guys kind of running things and making decisions behind the scenes. But we get to see this team of new Avengers, right? I mean, look here, this team that went out on the Avengers jet. None of them have been Avengers in the past. This is really cool to see them together. But we get this story called The Sentry, and Iron Man's got the idea that, hey, we saw Bob Reynolds in the prison. We should go after him and see if he wants to be on the team. It'll also give us the opportunity to keep an eye on him because he's super powerful and has some mental problems. So they battle the Void. They learn a little bit more about Sentry. And again, there's a Sentry Omnibus coming out. So if you want to learn more about him, go pick that up. Otherwise, there were 2 smaller Paul Jenkins runs that were really cool. We get a little tie-in here with the Fantastic Four. And then the next story is this character Ronin. So it's really cool because they kind of hint like, is this maybe Daredevil? Because Daredevil now twice has been asked to join the Avengers. Captain America came to him in the Bendis Daredevil run and said, hey, you could join us and that'd kind of get you out of your legal problems. They came to him here, and Daredevil's kind of a loner and didn't want to do it. But he says, I know a person. And does he know a person, or is this just Daredevil in a costume? So they are out in Japan trying to figure out, a little more of this mystery, this cloud that's hanging over recent events in the Marvel Universe. And it brings them to Japan, and they bump into this character, Ronin. Who is Ronin, right? In the movies, it was Hawkeye. But I won't give it away for you here. Another cool moment with the Avengers coming out and, just the crowd really welcoming them. So next we're going to get to a story called The Collective. So here is where you'd want to stop and then go read House of M by Brian Michael Bendis, and then you'll come back. So what The Collective is kind of a fallout from House of M, where Wanda whispers the words, "No more mutants." And it kind of asks the questions like, okay, where did these mutants that controlled all these energy fields, like where did all that power go? And it kind of reminds me of a Doctor Strange story where, something about, there's a consequence for all the magic that's used in the world, and all, it's kind of all building up somewhere, and it's going to come and, collect its paycheck or something like that. But this was a really cool story to follow up from the House of M story. We're getting some Iron Spider here. So are we already in? I think we're in the. Sorry, while I collect my thoughts. No, I think we're still in this collective story. So the kind of all that energy, the mutant energy that disappeared, is captured in one man, unknowingly, and they've got to go after him and stop him. So then we get back to the meat of this story. And we get into Civil War. And there is some significant issues crossing over with Civil War. We get more Illuminati stuff. And I don't want to cover Civil War. I'm going to do a separate review just on that. So after we get past Civil War, which I'll do a review on Civil War in its entirety, we go back and, now the Avengers are kind of split up. So it's not going to be the same team, because some of them were pro-registration with Iron Man and some of them were not. And Captain America is going to be missing from the team for a while. And Spider-Man's going to look a little bit different for a while. You notice he's in the black costume. We added Ronin to the team. We added Iron Fist to the team. We added Stephen Strange to the team. Really cool team, but this is the Captain America anti-registration team. What they're doing now is entirely illegal. So they will have a couple run-ins with Iron Man and his team, but they're still trying to figure out, what's going on here. They're brought back to, I think they go back to Japan for this one. And they run into what they assume is a friendly with Elektra, who is, since been running the hand. But we're going to learn something about Elektra that's going to feed into the next book that you'd read right after this, which is Secret Invasion. And I don't like to give away too many spoilers, but these books are also 20 years old at this point. So when we end this book, we learn that Elektra was not Elektra at all. And how long has that been going on? We don't know, but she's a Skrull. And, are the Skrulls related to the breakout or the changes at S.H.I.E.L.D., the weird stuff going on? Really cool mystery story, and you've got to check out Secret Invasion next. This book has some really cool alternate covers as we kind of thumb through here. I really like these century, kind of that old look, that old style. Really love the black and whites. And then we get some, let's see, the Avengers Most Wanted files. Looks like Carnage. Looks like just files on some villains and stuff. But that's New Avengers Volume 1. And again, the next thing you're going to want to read is Secret Invasion. And then there are, like I said, the team splits up here. We've got the New Avengers, which is the Captain America anti-registration. And then we have the Mighty Avengers, which is Iron Man's pro-registration team. And both those teams will have crossovers with Secret Invasion. And then once that story's over, both those individual titles will continue on. And we've got, like I said, we've got Brian Michael Bendis Avengers Volume 2 out now. We need some Dark Avengers. We need the Mighty Avengers. But the next thing after this, you'd go to Secret Invasion, read more New Avengers, and then we go into Siege. But that is New Avengers Volume 1. So I absolutely love Brian Michael Bendis as a writer, but I love his Avengers. This was around the time I was getting back into comic books, and when trade paperbacks were really starting to flourish. I think Brian Michael Bendis does a lot of things really well here. I think he does dialogue very well. I think he's one of the best in the business to do it. I think he understands these characters and their interactions. Like, there's just moments where Spider-Man says something to Wolverine, and I think that's exactly what Spider-Man would say to Wolverine. Or, you know, little interactions between Captain America and Iron Man, who have been Avengers for most of their adult life, and are now kind of welcoming in this new team, and little interactions between them that just make you think he knows these guys. That's exactly what they'd say, and kind of makes it feel real. Brian Michael Bendis kind of turns them into an investigatory team. They do a lot of investigations of crime, and there's, you know, something kind of hanging over them, and they don't really know what's going on, and it really is going to lead into Secret Invasion. A lot of the stories in this book lead into that. But he also balances events. You know, in the middle of this, he switches over and writes House of M. And then a few months later is a Civil War. And then, like I said, this leads directly into Secret Invasion. And just he weaves a web so dense, and it fits right in with these events. It's just an absolute all-time amazing run. We finally got New Avengers by Brian Michael Bendis Volume 2. Hopefully we get a Volume 3 and a Dark Avengers and a Mighty Avengers. Like, there's more stuff that should be printed in omnibus format that we don't have yet. But really awesome that they're printing this. Fun story about this book. When I got into omnibuses in 2020, COVID, right? 2021, this had been out of print for a while, and it was not getting reprinted. So I decided I'm going to pay over cover for this. So I hunted around for a long time, and I finally found a copy. Well, it turns out I found 2 copies, and I accidentally somehow bought 2 copies for $200 each. I overpaid quite a bit twice. So I ended up having to sell one, and I think I took it at a loss. But I love this run. I think this is some of the best Avengers we'll ever read. The team that he brings together is perfect. Captain America, Iron Man. You know, Thor was gone in this time period, right, from the events of Thor Disassembled and Ragnarok. Would have been awesome to have him there, but pairing him up with Luke Cage and Spider-Woman, Spider-Man, and Wolverine, that's an awesome Avengers team. Let me know down in the comments what you thought, and we'll see you on the next video.